Hi, I'm Michael Ordonez of the Los Angeles Times here at our photo and video studio at San Diego Comic-Con 2019. We're here today with Amazon's new fantasy, mystery, romance, adventure, Carnival Row. Here's the cast and the EPs. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hey. How's everybody?
Why don't you quickly introduce yourselves for the camera and tell us very quickly who you play.
I'm Tamsin Merchant, and I play Imogen Spurnrose.
Who's a human?
Who's a human?
Who's a human? And I am David Jesse, and I play Agreus, who is not a human.
And I'm Orlando Bloom, and I play Rycroft Philo Philostrate, and I'm a human detective.
Fair enough. The first question is actually for you, gentlemen. Let's start with the substance and get to form. I know that this began with a screenplay that you wrote, Travis?
Yes, that's right.
And then was later developed into the show, so that must have taken years. About when did the process begin?
It took about like 16, 17 years. Around.
Oh, that's all?
Yeah.
Not much, really, then.
I wrote it in film school, like forever ago, and it was actually...
He had a dream in his dormitory.
a little bit. But it was actually, it was the script that got my whole career started. So, yeah, it was like on the blacklist, and people loved it, but it didn't really, nothing happened with it for forever until Legendary got it and was like, hey, have you ever thought about making this a TV show? It was sort of an ironic question because I think if I had written it now, I wouldn't have even written it as a feature. I would have written it as a film to begin with, just because the world's so big and TV has really changed quite a lot in that intervening decade.
Yeah, Orlando's no disturbing. He had a dream with you in it in film school.
Yeah, wouldn't be the only one.
So
right?
I'm glad you said that.
I asked about how long it took because of some of the themes of it. I mean, it has some clear themes of immigration and refugees and xenophobia, which are perhaps even more relevant now than previously. So I wonder how perhaps the last few years have changed the way you've approached the story, apart from the fact that this era of long-form storytelling has exploded.
It's changed it. It's changed it not as much as you would hope, and not as much as you would think. I would say when I wrote it, probably the issues of the time were a bit more on about like race, and especially like living in the South as I did, and that it's sort of, if anything, we tacked a little bit more towards immigration as we were developing it for television, and because that, I think, has become increasingly important as across the world. You've seen mass migrations, both in Europe and in the U.S. So it's that emphasizing that part of it definitely became more important as we were making it a show.
Yeah, I don't want to.
The world we live in today is a rich narrative in its source of
stimulus
story and stimulation. So.
Yeah, for better or worse. I don't want to shoehorn themes into your work for you, but there's also that nifty feminist metaphor of a woman being forced into a corset, taking it off and being able to fly.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think the way we like to put it is this show is about just about any different way that you can subdivide a population and the groups within a population and how they interact and how everything interacts. And so, yeah, it's definitely the whole feminist idea is very, I think, important to the narrative as well, and tracking those stories.
Though I will say, I get forced into a corset. When that comes off, I don't get to fly because I'm a human. So that sucks.
Yeah, we've only been able to see...
Exactly. Right. David would like to beg to differ.
We've only been able to see the first couple of episodes, and I have a feeling that your character is going to go somewhere else from where she's going in the first two.
Yeah, definitely. But there are so many amazing actresses in our show. There are so many wonderful women, and it's actually been a huge pleasure to read every script, every single episode of the 8. There's such a massive talent of the the female talent in our show, and it is such a pleasure to read so many complex female characters, and I just think it's a huge gift, and that's, I think, all of the women in the show are so grateful and just really relish playing those multifaceted characters, especially in period dramas. I think they can be a bit more black and white, but this is just so rounded and so rich and so full. It's really fun.
It's great to have the fantasy component within the history and period of this, because it allows you the freedom to explore all kinds of things and dynamics and relationships. It's one of the things that I think lends itself so well to the show.
Yeah, I'm really glad you two brought those things up, the period drama and the fantasy elements, because it does seem to pull from a lot of different places. Detective genre, romance, noir, and it's like Dickensian, Victorian England.
Steampunky, but kind
Yeah.
of cooler.
So I should just explain for the viewers who haven't seen it that what they call a puck is sort of a satyr, has
Fawn.
A fawn.
Fawn,
Yeah.
fawn,
Horns
yeah.
and
Yeah.
hooves.
Yeah, but sort of more badass than
Yeah,
you
think
think of.
Mr. Tumless, but like in a leather jacket or something.
There you
I don't
go.
know. Yeah.
I think James McAvoy
I think the
would
great
appreciate
thing
this.
about the fantasy component and the fawns, the pucks, all of the fae, as we call them, is they're real. They feel real.
Mm-hmm.
They're tangible. That you feel the humanity of each of the races, and you can identify with them without guilt, shame, or anything else. You can be objective and stand outside and look at what is happening in the world today, some of the things that bring great conflict and inner turmoil, and actually go, wow, because we're looking at a faun, or we're looking at a fae, or we're looking at it's you can sort of have an interesting like view behind the curtain, as it were, or into another world, and feel you get a sense of perspective about it all, which I think's one of the great things about the show.
And isn't that weird that it almost induces more empathy?
Correct. Yeah, that's the
How
thing.
does
You can-
that happen?
Because you're separated from it, because you're not feeling like you don't have to be that person. So even if you relate to some of the things that these characters, because they're a fantasy, but that was the great thing about the way the show was set. It was your suit, the way that you look. It's you don't second guess it. You're not going. There's no questioning. You're just in. You're straight in with the reality of what the characters are going through, and the emotion and the journey, the adventure, the love, the excitement. It's great to be able to use that fantasy component and have that be our way in, our magnifying glass, if you like.
I loved the movie like Blade Runner when I was writing this, and one of my favorite things, I call it the drop-in. It's like there's two different kinds of genre shows. There's one where you're Alice in Wonderland and the audience has a surrogate into a story that's always having stuff explained to them. And then there's the other kind, which is more like Blade Runner, where it's like the audience has no surrogate and the audience is just dropped in and expected to catch up.
Yeah.
And I love that, because I feel like that makes you lean forward.
Yes.
And rather than sort of, feeling like your hand hold it along,
Yeah.
And I really wanted this to feel like that. I really wanted, you to come in and people are using words and terminology that you haven't quite learned yet, but you're having to learn through context clues. I think that's the best way to get into a new world.
Yeah, as an actor as well, it's really fun to have this like ready-made playground that you come in and you've got your costume on, you've got your hair done or your horns on or something, and you're in this world that is complete and it's huge and rich and vast, and learning words like so there's this phrase that is, I guess, the Burgish equivalent of like Jesus. It's by the martyr.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and so learning to just like have that trip off the tongue was quite a fun challenge, to be like, oh, by the martyr, and just kind of say it like we all say, oh my God, you know.
Right.
And that was really fun, something to just to step into and really play with.
That was a good by the martyr, by the way.
Yes.
That was
Been
really,
practicing.
I really liked that.
That one's
I
gonna. They're gonna use
I
that.
could never quite
Use
land
that.
by the
Yeah.
martyr.
I want people to be saying by the martyr.
By the martyr.
I got a
But
lot
it's-
to ask you, but we're almost out of time. So let me ask you our standard Comic-Con question. And I mean, you've probably experienced a lot of this. What's the weirdest or craziest thing you've seen at Comic-Con now or ever?
I don't know if it. I saw some mermaids once. I was at this pool party, and there were just like mermaids in the pool.
Are you sure you hadn't had something special there?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, like, but I mean, I remember
You were at
the
Disney
time,
Experience, weren't you?
It was, yeah, it was towards the end of that Comic-Con trip, so I was kind of like, yeah, there's mermaids. Like, it was just like,
I just,
didn't even feel
I'm
that
always,
weird.
I'm always so impressed with the dedication, the sheer joy and love of the worlds that are created, whatever show, movie may be here, but the fans that just go all out to kind of have that moment to themselves to experience. So it's like, it's just the commitment, you know, it's real. It's people who are just uber fans and appreciate the work and the worlds that have been created, and they just show it, either it's on their bodies, in their makeup, in their walk, they're just, it's an art form in itself. It really is.
I call it the real happiest place on earth.
Yeah.
Well, this is my first Comic-Con. Yeah, so for me, the most amazing thing I've seen is the Tettaby Hotel from Carnival Row on MLK and First at the Amazon Hub. Yeah. You walk in, so you go into the experience and you pick whether you're a creature or a human, and you go in and then you get treated. So I'm a human in the show, so I picked creature to get see what it's like on the other side of the fence. And
there's literally a fence right there.
There's literally a fence, and you get shouted at if you're a creature, which is quite fun.
Oh, well, it's good to know.
It would
But
be interesting if you get a chance to go and do both. Go through it as a human and then go
Yeah.
through it as a
That's
creature.
Get treated
true.
better.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
the Tettaby Hotel is amazing.
So the very last thing, I mean, I'm sure you've seen plenty of cosplaying Legoloses and Wills. If you
Tattoos, that's the really creepy one. When
Oh,
you see
really?
people with like
But
your
if you guys-
character.
I saw that puppet
multiple-
of you in Prague, a Legolas puppet.
If you guys got to
really?
cosplay as anyone at Comic-Con, who would you cosplay?
I want to be a mermaid now that Damon's
Yeah,
mentioned mermaids.
just to haunt him.
You're welcome.
It's my mermaid impression.
Who was that character in the Never-Ending Story? The big dog, the big
The
flying.
dragon?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We could all be like a big
Different
Train.
parts of the dragon.
Yeah, exactly.
5 people in a
It's
suit.
my Chinese sign. I don't know what to tell you.
I reckon mine would be T'Challa.
Oh, but
I just think that
without the mask or with the mask?
with the mask, so Black Panther, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think so, yeah. It's just like a boyhood dream, like, yeah.
No, nothing from you guys?
I would want to cosplay as Guillermo del Toro. Because just to be able to walk around and
Just
as
oh,
Guillermo.
thank you. Yes.
Yes,
Travis-
everybody
Travis-
going, we love you, we love you.
Travis wants to be Philo Rycroft. For this
Oh
one.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. He calls me Philo.
I do. Sometimes I slip and I call him.
There you go. There
You
you
get a
go.
kiss from Cara Delevingne.
He looks great in a bowler hat.
Oh yeah. I actually do have a ball.
All right, guys, thank
Thank
you
you so
so
much.
much for coming.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate your time.
Thank you.